What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build the best gaming PC you can put together for 1440p and 4K gaming, based around what I believe to be the best combo for these mix of two resolutions. This is a system that's going to deliver great performance in a compact ATX form factor, and do so with some genuinely fantastic components that are easy to put together and provide great upgrade paths too. As always, I'll be walking you through all the parts that I've selected for this build and why, putting it together as we go along, and then looking at performance a little bit later, so you can see exactly how this build holds up at those top two resolutions. Let's do this. The Deepcool AK G2 series is here, with upgraded air cooling for your next build. With a range of designs available, there are loads of options to choose from. Whether you're looking to pick up the AK620 G2 in the classic black design with new wood effect finish up top, or white colorway with similar wood effect treatment, there are styles to suit your build. Looking for a single tower design instead, the AK700 MYX series comes with a super thick heatsink, same cool and quiet fan, and digital display functionality too. Check them out at the first link in the description below. I'm going to start today's video by installing as many components as possible into the motherboard first of all. This is always the place I'd recommend you start with your gaming PC build, and it's the workflow that just makes the most sense when putting any system together, in my opinion. Now, inside the motherboard box, you'll find this. And for today's build, I've selected to go for the ASUS B850 Plus Wi-Fi. This is one of their tough gaming lineup, and you can see you get the nice tough styling with the black and grey. They used to have loads of yellow on these boards, but they phased that out, which I actually think is an improvement. The AM5 socket for installing our Ryzen processor, our 4 RAM DIMM slots, and then you can see here this nice little toolless notch to easily install or uninstall the GPU. You've got all the nice quality of life features you might expect. You've got good connectivity with front panel USB-C, and then if we switch around to the rear I/O, you'll find onboard 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, plenty of high-speed USBs, and Wi-Fi 7. Some cheaper boards will only give you Wi-Fi 6E, so the inclusion of Wi-Fi 7 here is a really nice addition. Inside of the motherboard, I'm going to first start off by installing this, the processor that I've picked for today's build. This right here is the AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D, and in my opinion, it's one of the most overlooked CPUs in the current market. When it first launched, it was the fastest gaming CPU on the market, but its limelight's kind of been stolen by the 9800X3D, the recently released 9850X3D, and what those chips have done is improve on what was already a fantastic option using some slightly newer technology. And although this chip's a little bit older, it still provides great performance, outpacing in terms of gaming horsepower the likes of the 9600X, 9700X, and doing so at a good price point. In my opinion, the 7800X3D is actually more than fast enough for the GPU choice in today's build, but more on the 9070XT a little bit later, with any higher end options actually kind of been a bit of a waste of money for most people. I'll leave comparison benchmarks though between this and the other CPU choices in the build write-up down below, so do check it out on GeekaWhat.com for all of the data. Now, in terms of actually installing this, the first thing is obviously to take it out of the box, and when you do take it out of the box, you want to look for the golden triangle that's located on the underside of the processor. You can see that on my chip here, it's located in this corner, and what I'm going to do is match that up with the corresponding triangle on the motherboard socket. Lift the arm up, lift up the socket cover, and drop the chip into place. Add the arm back down, you need to apply a bit of pressure to get this in, and your CPU should be good to go. The next component I'm going to install into the motherboard is the RAM or the memory. Now, it's obviously worth acknowledging that right now the memory market is a mess. I've talked about this in loads of videos here on the channel. This stuff is currently priced, frankly, ridiculously. And while some of you have found little pockets of availability, it's clear that memory is a challenge. I'm going to link a full video I've made about this in the cards now so you can check it out. I spent a lot of time talking about RAM, but my recommendations if you want to build this system will be to try and find a 32 gig kit with the best speed and best latency you can find for the price. I'll be installing the memory in today's build into the 2nd and 4th RAM DIMM slots, and that's really easy to do. Simply take the memory out the packet first of all, locate the notch on the DIMM slot, which we're going to use to line the memory up, and then pull back the clips on the top of the board, slide the memory into place, a little something like so, and then we should be good to go. Repeat this for both DIMMs. Get that nice satisfying click sound, and when memory prices maybe fall, you've got 2 slots spare for the future. I'll also link a video I made talking about whether you really need 32 gigs of RAM in the cards now. You might find dropping this build down to 16, at least temporarily, while prices come down, could be an option for you, depending on the games and the resolution you're playing at. But again, I'll link that in the cards now and down in the description below. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is install the SSD, and in preparation, I'm going to open up my screwdriver and find a teeny tiny screwdriver bit to replace the standard Phillips bit that is in this particular screwdriver. The reason being, I need it to remove this top M.2 heatsink here. ASUS, if you're watching, this would be great if it was toolless. Personally, I think that would be a really nice quality of life feature that other brands are doing, but you know, just a bit of feedback. Remove that M.2 heatsink using the 2 screws, and then once you've done that, you can install the drive. Specifically in today's build, I've gone for the Teamgroup MP44L. It's one of my favorite drives that offers typically good value for money. Again, we're currently in the middle of a memory crisis, which is affecting both your short-term memory, which is your RAM, but also your long-term memory, such as SSDs. So that is something you really do want to bear in mind, and you can shop around. SSDs seem to be a little bit less affected, but certainly not immune from the current situation. Return the M.2 heatsink into place with the 2 screws, and we should be good to go. Now, once all of that is done, we should have ourselves what I would then call a completed motherboard assembly. And the next stage of the build is either to move this into the case, but first, I'm actually going to check out the CPU cooler for today's build and actually see what the mounting situation is, so we can do any prep for this at this earlier stage, while things are easy to access and a bit less painful and a bit less awkward. Now, a quick glance inside the box shows us a few things. The first is this, which is our AMD bracket, so that's a good start. The next is that we've got some AMD male-to-male mounting screws. Hang on, don't lose them, James, don't lose them. Now, these look a little something like this. You can see here we've got these little grey stoppers on one side. They're going to go closest to the motherboard. And then these male posts on the other side, which are what the top of the CPU cooler plate is going to screw into. The only other thing that we should definitely have, which I'm going to take a look for, are some included thumb screws. The cooler will come better than this for you. I've just used it before, as you can probably tell. And those thumb screws look a little something like this. There's 3 there, but we'll of course be using 4 in total for the installation of the cooler. Pop those 4 male-to-male posts on top of the CPU socket on each corner of the motherboard, and then we're good to go. Next up, it's time to move the motherboard assembly into this, which is the case that I'll be using for today's build. Now, this right here is the brand new Prime AP303. Now, this particular case here is actually really quite interesting because you get the glass side panel. Inside, there's a accessory box, which has fallen out actually kind of satisfyingly there, which contains all the screws and accessories and stuff we're going to need. And inside, you actually get a fairly logical layout that I quite like. Now, we get a room for a full-size ATX motherboard, but because the power supply is moved to the front, the case is actually not too tall. Obviously, in some dual-chamber cases, the power supply is moved to the back, but that makes the case quite wide. This is neither of those things. It's just, I guess, a bit long. Inside, we also have an integrated GPU support bracket, which is actually pretty enormous and should give us good options in terms of how we want to position it. Additionally, inside the case, we've got room for a 360mm radiator at the top. Our intake fans are presumably going to go at the bottom, as of course the power supply is going to be situated at the front. All the panels are toolless and feel like they're pretty well built. The rear panel comes off nice and easily once again. And if I spin the case around to the rear, you can see that all the front panel cables and stuff are nicely rooted in the chassis as it is. And yeah, I mean, it's simple, but there's not really a lot to complain about. The only thing it doesn't have, by the looks of things, is reverse connect motherboard support, which I find kind of weird because obviously ASUS have got, well, they're one of the first people to do reverse connect motherboards. So it would kind of make sense if this had that functionality, at least in my opinion. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the motherboard and spin it round to the rear. That's to give me a slightly easier view of where all the standoffs are located. So you can see here there's 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and a further 3 down the bottom. Once I have an idea of where these are located, I can match them up with the standoff locations inside the case. So you can see here we've got 3 at the top, which are pre-installed, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. That means we're perfectly configured out the doors for ATX ports, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and slide the motherboard in, position the rear I/O in the right place, a little bit low at the moment, and then as you can see, I can bring it up over those standoffs, being careful not to crush this cable in the top. And then, there we go, it should just sit of its own accord, at least temporarily. Once that's sorted, I can then use all of the screws that come included in the case accessory box to get it secure and make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Cool, that is looking good. Now, the next stage of the build, I think, is actually going to be to install the all-in-one liquid cooler. I seem to have just dropped something down here. Thumb screw for the CPU cooler. Let's leave that there. I found the missing thumb screw. What I'm going to do is install the cooler at the top of the case, and this chassis advertises 60mm of clearance at the top for the AIO. And what that should mean, once I get the cooler in, is that yes, we're still going to be able to access all the power connectors and stuff even once the all-in-one has been installed. That is why I'll be installing it now rather than leaving it until later after the power supply, which is what I often do in other builds. Loads of clearance at the top here, making installation at this stage actually a feasible option. And then once the bracket has been placed onto the water block for AMD, I'm going to add a dab of thermal paste, secure the block down, and then tighten it off with those 4 included thumb screws we talked about earlier. The one that I dropped in case you missed it. Now then, with that in, the build is starting to come together. I think I'm going to do the power supply next, and for this, I believe the front panel of this case, yes, the front panel is removable, but I'm not actually sure what that's achieved. Okay, hang on, it has actually achieved something in that the power supply bracket seems to be secured with these 2 screws and this sort of hook mechanism above. So let's remove the PSU bracket. It does also look like you can move the PSU bracket up depending on your radiator clearances, so that's definitely interesting to know. And then, yeah, that just hooks out from inside the case. And what that means is we can install the power supply outside the case and then slot it back in. Just for reference as to how it installs, it's going to go back in this way with our mesh at the front. So I'm probably going to try and install the power supply with the fan here, pulling air in from the front of the case. For the power supply in today's build, I have gone for a Corsair RM750e. If you wanted to go all ASUS theme, I have looked at some ASUS PSUs before and been pretty happy, but this was the right 750 watt ATX 3.1 unit for today's build. I wanted to go ATX 3.1, and even though the card I've gone for today is an AMD GPU, I still wanted that ATX 3.1 functionality. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take the power supply out, and then if you refer to the modular interface, I'm going to plug in all the cables required for this build. So that today is our motherboard power cable, our GPU power cable with the 6+2 pin connectors, CPU power, which is our dual 4+4 pins, and then a SATA power header, which might be required for the cooler. I'm not sure yet, but it's good to have and may be useful in the future. And then I'm just going to slide the power supply back into the case and hopefully give you guys a slightly better angle so you can sort of see how this works. So what I'm going to do is get the power supply in. It's a little bit fiddly actually, especially once you've got all the cables attached. Remembering, of course, to plug in the little PSU extension cable along the way. There we go. Are we good? Yeah, we are good. And I'm then going to go ahead and screw the power supply back into place. And while I'm here, I'm also going to pop the front panel of the case into place. A little something. Oh, no. That wasn't good. Yeah, that's not good. Now, what I'm going to do is do all the power supply and the front panel cabling. So that involves the CPU power cables, which are going to go up to the top left-hand corner, the motherboard power cable, which is going to go to the right-hand side, and then all the front panel cables. HD audio, which goes down to the bottom left, our JFP1 front panel, which goes down to the bottom right, and then the USB 3 Type A and Type C, both of which are positioned on the right-hand side of this particular motherboard. The only other thing remaining before finally putting the GPU into this build is to add some extra fans to the bottom of the case for a bit more active intake. These right here stick with the ASUS Prime theme. They're the MR120s and they're a triple pack of reverse blade ARGB fans. They're Prime branded, so they should fit in with the theme of the rest of today's build. They're pretty affordable and they look like pretty good quality too. As I say, they're going to go at the bottom of the case and provide a bit of extra intake airflow, specifically for the whole build, but specifically for the GPU. And with all of that done, that brings me on to this, the graphics card for today's build. Now, to try and tie this whole system in with a bit of an ASUS theme, I've gone for this ASUS Prime 9070 XT. This is actually one of the 9070 XTs that we sell in our pre-built systems over at GeekaPC, which you can check out in the cards section now and in the links in the description below. Now, this particular GPU design is actually rather nice because it's 3 fans, which means you're going to get that extra cooling. It's got an all black design, though it's available in white too. It's got triple 8-pin GPU power connectors and then a sleek backplate, which looks really pretty good. The PCB on the card ends here, so you've got a bit of extension for extra cooling, but it's still a pretty substantial design with triple display ports on the back and a HDMI at the rear too. Obviously, the main thing with this card is its performance. It's a very, very strong GPU that's going to provide you with fantastic frame rates across a really broad range of the latest AAA titles. And I'll be looking in detail at performance numbers very shortly. Now, with regards to how this actually installs into the case, I'm going to be installing it into the top GPU slot, which, taking a look at the PCI lane covers, is the second and third which need to be removed. So go ahead and take these out before then sliding the GPU into place. And once that's done, we have ourselves a pretty good looking and slightly different gaming PC build. But what about performance? That's the big question I'll be answering in just a moment's time. So that's the visuals in the bag, and let me know what you think of the ASUS theme of today's build down in the comments section below. Next up, it's time to take a look at performance, and as you'd expect, I've tested the 9070 XT and 7800 Extrude in this build in a wide range of titles, covering off both 1440p, which is where you'll be living for those high frame rate games with the 9070 XT, but also at that top end 4K resolution, so you can see exactly what this system is made of. Let's start off, shall we, with the brand new Resident Evil at 4K high settings. Tested at this top end resolution, and the average frame rate using rasterization clocked in at over 77 FPS. Not bad, but I think we can do just a little bit better. Battlefield 6 is next up, similarly at the 4K high settings preset, and here we see a frame rate improvement right up to just under 96 frames per second on average. While the 0.1% lows were a little on the low side, the average frame rate and 1% lows were solid, and the game looks fantastic in my opinion at this top end 4K resolution. Talking of games that look fantastic, Arc Raiders is next up. 4K high settings here sees us once again in the 90 FPS realm with 98.2 frames per second on average, to be precise. That was at, as I say, 4K high settings, rasterization, so no ray tracing or DLSS upscaling in the equation. Drop down the resolution to 1440p and tune up the competitiveness of the titles, and in Marvel's Rivals, we see an average frame rate of 146 frames per second. Not bad. 1 and 0.1% lows were really good too, with 125 and 120 to be precise, showing a highly consistent frame rate. Marvel's Rivals is a game that's just always been really well optimized for AMD GPUs, in my opinion. Call of Duty's Black Ops 7 was next up, again at that 1440p high preset. Here we see an average frame rate of over 170 FPS, again really impressive, providing great performance in this build. Finally, the last game was Cyberpunk 2077, a bit of an older title now, but the inbuilt benchmarking mode makes it great as a historical point of comparison. Here at 1440p high, in that benchmarking mode, we saw an average of 147 frames per second on average. What do you guys think of this build? What do you think of the aesthetics? Does the performance stack up to what you'd expect? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.